All right. Hello, folks. Welcome to a solo stream. Today is not going to be my usual working on Ensembler or something like that. What I want to do is put together a couple of videos based on some of the stuff I've been doing and learning from deploying some apps, doing some GitHub action build checks, maybe some native image stuff. So sort of putting all that together into basically some good, useful baseline ways of building and deploying your apps. This is sort of what I would consider a good start for an app that you're going to deploy anywhere, but specifically onto two services. One is Railway, the other is Koyeb. These are platforms as a service, so what's sometimes referred to as a PaaS. Heroku is sort of the prototypical example of that, since they've been around the longest. Heroku, though, has gotten expensive, and certainly for sort of hobbyists, like, it's expensive but worth it if you have the need for it. But some of these newer services like Railway and Koyeb are much more suited for smaller apps that don't need the, you get what you pay for. So Heroku is certainly generally more reliable, but you pay for that. They do have a lot more services and things like that. But if you don't need all those, if you don't need some of its features, Railway and Koyeb are a couple of good examples of they're still PaaSes. So you don't have to wire up networking and load balancers and all that low level stuff. You get to work at a higher level. I certainly appreciate the need for some of, when you need more control, then you want something like an AWS or Azure. But a lot of times you don't, especially if you're working on which you might consider hobby projects, or basically non-critical projects is really the way I think about it, because there's lots of small projects, some of which we might do as sort of, our own, fill our own needs, scratch our own itch, as it were. But a lot of times I remember building, a handful of apps working in a company that were used only inside the company, and they weren't mission critical. They were, they were basically tools that made it easier to do things and kept track of things, but they were only used by the people working for the company. And so it was a lot lower sort of level of requirements for, no real scalability. Even though we might have had 1,000 people accessing it, they're not all accessing it within the same second. So those 1,000 people are spread across days and weeks. And so there's lots of times when we want a tool, where we don't need the level of scale, reliability, and expense that some of the other places offer. We just need some way to get it, to deploy it so everybody can access it. If you're working for a really large company, you probably have stuff internally that you could do that with. But lots of times you just want to say, I want to make this available to the net, or maybe it's something for your company that's available to your end users. Either way, it's really about, I want to get this thing deployed. I don't want to deal with managing the sort of upkeep of that. But there are some things that you want to do in order to make that a smooth process. And so what I'm going to be working on in stream today is basically planning out those videos, and then separately I'm going to record those videos and get those up onto YouTube. So let's see. Let me bring up, where is it? Bring up my mind map. And just so you know, feel free to interrupt with any questions. I'm not recording this I'm recording this, but I'm not recording this. This isn't going to go into the video. This is all just prep work. So feel free to ask questions, as long as they're tangentially related to Java, Spring Boot, or test-driven development. They're all fair game. All right, so let's go to the code. So these are build and build and deploy, not deploy. I always type deploy like it's reply, but with a D. And so there's the two parts. There's building, which there's not a lot there for these types of apps. Mainly there's sort of GitHub Actions, and there's native image. And so related to that then is maybe, Docker, the Docker file. So these are all kind of, how do I build? Then obviously there's a deploy. If you've got your build stuff set up nicely, then the deploy is you push to GitHub. So pretty much the parts to know about are sort of, what's available on Railway and what's available on Koyeb, a little bit about how those services work. And let me call this. So building and deploying to a PaaS. That's what we're doing here. Let me this bigger. So in a GitHub action, there's basically, let's call it two parts. They're sort of specifying the JDK that you're going to use, and then there's the build command. So if we take a look at what that looks like, where is my, let's close that. That's for later. What am I looking for? Oh yeah, the GitHub action. What am I looking for? So there's probably one other part, which is is basically when to run the action. Here in this build file, I basically specified whenever you push to anywhere. Since I generally only push to trunk, or main or master, whatever you call it, I don't, since these are sort of my projects and nobody else contributes to them. But even if so, I'm just still going to do everything. And then there are the jobs, and it's basically the build, and the build includes sort of the build and test and verify, which is where it gets its name from. So they're specifying sort of what it runs on and uses. And I basically have it set up for Java 21, but some of the things we'll see is if you want, you could do against what's called a matrix of different JDKs, if you care about that. But I'm really trying to keep this simple because unless you have a reason to be, like if you're supplying a library, then sure, you're going to want to run on a matrix of different JDKs, make sure you're compatible in some way. But the idea here is this is a bespoke application, right? This is a custom application. Again, whether it's a hobby project or something internal to a company, you know which version of Java you want. And you likely want the latest one. Because you get all sorts of good stuff with JDK 21 and with JDK 22 coming out. One note I have to check, which is, so I like to use the cutting edge, not all the time, but I like to use some of the stuff that is considered preview. So in case you're not familiar, one of the things that Java has been doing when they move to a more frequent release cycle is they now sort of, when they're thinking of adding or changing something in the language or the JDK, they put it out as either an incubator or then a preview, and sometimes it gets re-previewed. So it's not officially in the language. So anything marked preview could disappear to the next release. That rarely happens. Usually what happens is it gets modified or adjusted in some way based on feedback. And so I like to use the preview features because I like to then offer feedback. So Java 21, the preview feature, one of them is what's called an unnamed variable. And I think they changed that recently because in 22, that's going to be called I'm not sure. They changed the names of some of these things. But the idea is sometimes you have a variable that you want to ignore. Let's look at an example. Let's go. Do I have it open? No. But I think I have an example here. Yeah. And so this is in combination with a bunch of other preview stuff. So here, we've got fancy new stuff that is in recent Java is we're switching on this event, and then we're going to do something based on that event. So this event is a player account event, and there are a bunch of implementations of that. So there are these 5 different implementations. So here we're using a whole bunch of stuff. We're using a sealed interface with permits. So we have defined at compile time which implementations exist, which means this switch event, notice there's no default fall through because we don't need one. And in fact, if I remove one, the compiler is going to complain saying you have not covered all possible values. So, so this is the fancy switch statement with sort of a closed world. This works for enums as well. And this is a record, forget what they call it. I mean, it's a record pattern. And the idea is, so these events are record objects. And the specific event has 2 pieces of information. It has the payout and some other piece of information. Turns out we don't need that other piece of information, which is the player outcome, because for calculating this thing, we only care about the amount. Hey there, Dudeman. And so because I don't care, we can use this underscore. Underscore has been disallowed as an actual variable name. It used to be allowed before Java 9, and then Java 9 said, nope, don't do that. I think it was a warning at first and then became an error. And now, and they did that knowing that they were going to do something like this. So here, this is sort of the shortest possible way to say, there's a value here. I don't care what it is. I'm not going to use it. And you could just say ignored like that. And it's of the type player outcome. But like, I'm not using this. So this is why some people dislike Java. It's like, oh, that's so verbose. Why? It's like, well, okay, I can replace that with this. And now it's less verbose. And therefore, hey, Tukes, going well. So that's one of the preview features because that has not been finalized yet. So instead of actually having to put a variable and give it some name when you're going to ignore it anyway, this allows you to just completely get rid of that. And here, player lost game, I don't care about the object itself at all because we don't do anything as a result. So it's another way of basically saying, there's a value that I need to put here, but I'm not going to use it. Don't bother me with it. What's the least number of characters I can type to tell you that it's there, but I don't care about it? And that's the underscore. And so this is all under the JEP. So if you look for JEPs, so this was 456. Let's see. 443 was the preview. Yes, so 443 is the preview. So in Java 21, if you turn on enable preview, then you can use this feature. And so these are unnamed patterns and variables. So basically the unnamedness is, well, they do have a name, it's just called underscore. And then it is now finalized. So in JDK 22, this has now been finalized. But if you want to use it in JDK 21, you have to turn on the enable preview. Why I'm mentioning this is all about when you set up your JDK and you build, you might have to, if you want to deploy with the preview feature, you're totally allowed to do that, but you'd have to do some, you'd again have to sort of turn on that ability. So one thing about preview features is that you just have to be careful that the next release, again, sort of might take it away or change it in a way that you'll have to change your code. But it's not to say that it's low quality, not like it's alpha level quality and might break. I mean, that's always true, but they put preview stuff through the same general process of QA and so on. It's just that it's more, we think this is the way it should work, but we want real people to use it in real code bases. Yeah, dude, I mean, there's a lot of these small features that are just sometimes, a little bit of syntactic sugar makes the code tastier. And so that's that and the record patterns. So the unnamed variables and patterns will become an actual released, so you won't have, it's not a preview feature anymore as of JDK 22. And by the way, if you're not familiar with the JEP site and you're like a Java developer, they are not always easy to read, but they're not to the level of like the Java language specification, which takes a while to figure out how to read. And so I think it's really useful to look at them and see, what are these features that are coming up? So for example, the record patterns and pattern matching for switch, those are final, right? Those were released in 21. So 21 was really, most folks consider this one of the biggest releases. Some say of all time. I don't think of all time. But I think it's certainly one of the biggest releases since Java 8. Tukes asks about WebAssembly. I don't know. WebAssembly has been talked about as a compile target for things. Maybe there's value there. I know Kotlin has a way to do that. There are some tools that will target that with Java. I have to admit, my bias is I've been burned by that kind of stuff before, and have ended up having to basically trash a whole bunch of code and redo things. So I don't fully understand why people would want to do that. I just find like that kind of compiling to something that runs inside of a browser, I've yet to be convinced that it's sort of worth it. Hey, Oye, yeah, something GW2, yeah. One of the things that I like about sort of, for better or for worse, JavaScript is it's JavaScript and it runs in the browser and there are tools to develop it and edit it and work with it. And then it's sort of the natural language that the browser speaks. Anyway, so I don't know. I don't think we're there. And I would personally want to have a compelling reason to go that way. Hey, Chris Quant. Yeah, Kotlin didn't kill Java. And one thing if you're doing Android, you're probably going to want to use Kotlin. But for everything else, like, yes, there's still, probably the big things are nullability. Like, that's something that Kotlin has in terms of, no nulls unless you're very explicit about it. Java, will it ever get there? I don't know. It's really hard to do. There's some efforts. There's the JSpecify effort, which I've talked about on stream before. I think it's jspecify.dev, yeah. And so there's some stuff around static analysis. But in terms of sort of getting better at being concise and less verbose, step by step, release by release, Java's getting better. Doodman asks, does a JEP in the Open JDK map to something in the Oracle? So there's no difference between the Oracle JDK and the Open JDK. Oracle is just another set of folks who are compiling what's generally the same source code. So that you're not gonna. So there's the standard, which is the JDK. So there are standards for the language specification and the JDK's specification, and anything that is a Java, basically JDK, has to go through a compatibility test. And Oracle goes through that just like everybody else. And if you pass that, you are compatible. And so there's nothing specific to, there's no language features that are specific to Oracle's implementation, because Oracle's implementation is the same as everybody else's. And so while Oracle is kind of the shepherd of the language, that's their main job. Yeah. And so you'll see a lot of these written by Brian Getz, who's one of the main architects. If you haven't seen a talk by him, you should watch some talks by him. He's really good. Just comes across as just a down to earth, but like explains the stuff. And he gets asked, I'm sure, some of the questions over and over again, and he just takes that in stride. So all of these JEPs go through a process, but once they're basically accepted and delivered, they're part of the language. So yeah. Tukes, my country, zero Kotlin based. Yeah, I have not come across a lot of back-end Kotlin stuff. I know there are people doing it. I know there's people doing Kotlin and Spring Boot, which is really a nice combination. But I have not seen the uptake in it since I first heard people doing that 5-6 years ago. So I don't think it's increasing all that much in terms of back-end development. I think Java is good enough and getting better. And Kotlin, especially with virtual threads, like some of the stuff that Kotlin has in terms of its, what do I call it? I'm blanking on the name, but there's some thread stuff that concurrent thread stuff that basically async kind of stuff. And I think that's just going to go away. Like, I think the whole reactive experiment and some of the frameworks, like Spring, I think virtual threads are going to take care of 70% of the use cases that filled. There's still going to be some other cases around streaming data, but I think a lot of the cases of, I want to make sure I'm responsive and not blocking. Now you generally almost don't have to worry about that anymore. For a lot of cases, it's just there. So anyway, that was a very long tangent into JEPs. I think it's useful for folks to look at it and read it and read about what's coming up. You can just go to openjdk.org. You can click on specific JDK and see what's going to be in it. So it's like, hey, what's going to be in JDK 22 that comes out in 2 months? So it gets released on March 19th. We're currently we're just about hitting ramp down phase 2. So that means pretty much the features are locked. So there's some stuff that is still in preview. I'm bummed that string templates are still in preview because they're pretty cool. But we're getting another preview of that. Structured concurrency is in preview again. It was in preview in 21. And I guess I just didn't get enough feedback. So if you have feedback, give them feedback. My hope is that one will be finalized in JDK 23. Scope values, which is related to the threading stuff, is also in another preview. This is the new name, implicitly declared classes and instance main methods. This is basically meant for people what they call onboarding onto Java. How do we get people, I remember teaching Java, and it's like, you have to know, here's your public class main, and you have to write public static void main string array of arguments. Just remember that. Don't worry about what it means. Put your code inside the main method. Now you don't have to do that. Now you just basically write a main method that takes no parameters, and it can work without being inside of a class. So that's kind of some of the main stuff that this is aimed at is onboarding. It says it would be nice if we could just write tests in Java and let AI generate code. You could. You still have to write your tests in some language. Java is a perfectly fine language to write your tests in. I remain unconvinced that AI, aka machine learning, and LLMs are sufficient for that at this point. But converting from Java to Kotlin, you can ask IntelliJ to do that. It'll do a generally reasonable job on most of your code. But somebody still has to read and understand the code that's generated and troubleshoot it when it doesn't work. Yes, exactly, Judah. It's like, just type PSVM, ignore all the cruft, write your code here. Now you don't have to do that. And there's a few other things. Like now you can just launch it directly. You don't even have to compile it. So this is kind of the first step in because there have been concerns, rightly so, sort of from a market share point of view, which you got to pay attention to. If you don't have people in university or coming out of university learning Java because they're learning another language that's easier to get started in, you're going to have fewer Java developers. So this is an attempt to address that issue. Oh, Tukes. My take on desktop Java. Well, it's dead in the same way that desktop applications are dead. Lots of things that you used to have a desktop application for, you don't. They are now web apps. Whether they should be, I'm old. I've been in this business for decades, and I think there's a lot of crap. And it's not crap because people don't care. It's crap because it's very hard to write good responsive applications for the browser. It would actually be easier to target Mac OS and Windows as desktops, but that's not what people buy. And the problem with desktop apps is the update problem. And the security problem and other issues. And so I wouldn't say that, desktops are dead, desktop apps are dead, or that Java desktop apps are dead. They're just not as popular as they might have been at some point. I don't know that they were ever really that popular. I mean, I worked on a team that created a desktop app back in 2003. Today, we wouldn't do it as a desktop app. There would be no reason. Yes, the UI was really nice, and we'd have to spend a lot more work. I don't know if it'd be more work, but it would be different work to make it a web app. But it's one of those, I get asked, and maybe even Tukes, you've asked this, it's like, should I learn Java desktop? It's like, if you want to build a desktop app, you should learn it. But it's very unlikely you're going to find a job that has you create a desktop app. Oh yeah, yeah. So convert. No, let's just push a button and convert. Yeah, VB.net was very amenable to sort of a conversion because it's sort of, I don't know. I left most of my VB work behind around the VB6 timeframe. So the .net stuff was like, this just looks like .net with, a bunch of Visual Basic syntax here and there, but it really didn't look like VB anymore. Oh, and yes, Dudeman, unfortunately, a lot of desktop apps are web apps where we just ship you the browser too. And my experience with those is not great. They are problematic. But I totally get it. It's like, that's still easier, especially if you also want to support being run in a browser. That's easier to do cross-platform that way than other ways. And Defunctor Zero, it's like, have you not watched my stream before? Because I feel like I slam and SPAs all the time for good reason. I think, in my experience, 9 times out of 10, you do not need an SPA. You just need a good way to generate HTML and a little bit of JavaScript sprinkled in. And at some point, I'm going to be doing some HTMX on stream. But very much, I think a lot of what's being done in SPAs is because developers are bored and they want some complexity to make things more interesting. And fashion. It is fashionable and has been fashionable for, I don't know, 10 years, maybe, to do single page applications ever since Angular came out. But I heavily am biased against single page applications because I experience their terribleness on a daily basis. Because with a server side, backend and just front end HTML, where's your state? On the server. With a single page application, where's your state? Client and server. Now you got to synchronize those. Now you've got a distributed app. State is the biggest problem we've got, and SPAs make it worse. All right, let me unwrap my stack a bit and get back to my main purpose, which is building and deploying to a PaaS. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm with you. Except I'm willing to have a bit of JavaScript to make the UI a little bit nicer. Even if it's just I'm leveraging somebody else who wrote the JavaScript, like HTMX, because maybe I don't want to reload the entire page just to change one, row in a table. But otherwise, yeah, I'm totally with you. Way easier to test, way easier to work with. Ends up being, at least in my experience, faster. The thing I hate the most is sitting there watching a page where they have these animated things where it's like, hey, we're going to be loading some content here. We're not ready yet because we're waiting for some APIs to return. Instead, you could have just given me the HTML right up front. Yeah, eventually some of those absolutely, I would think that I'd want to see a lot of that interactivity in the browser itself and not like, it seems like it feels like some of that effort has stalled, but maybe that's just what it feels like, because I know there's still some movement. But Carson Gross, the author of HTMX, I'm sure would very much agree with that. Yeah, Hotwire is somewhat of the same idea. It certainly predates HTMX, but the idea of HTMX, there's very much similarity, and there's some growing number of tools to make it easy to do that with Spring Boot, and I hope to get to that. Let's say this quarter. I certainly won't say this month or next month, but certainly this quarter. So I was talking about enable preview when you deploy. Whether you want to do that or not, that's totally up to you. I'm personally fine with it. Maybe if it's not a hobby project, if it's some internal tool, maybe you don't want to do that. But one of the nice things is you can specify whatever JDK you want. So if you want to use JDK2, the day it comes out, especially in combination with a Docker file, you don't have to wait for nobody. Yeah, and defunctor 0, it's true. The testability of front-end code, because of the way it's written, the way most people seem to write it, it definitely feels like testing takes a backseat. There are certainly people who very much care about designing and testing front-end code, but that does not seem to be the dominant way of thinking. And so you don't design for testability, it's not testable. People say, well, I can't test it because it's, display stuff. It's like, well, if you have state and you're doing logic based on that state, you can test that. So what I wanted to look up was Maven build enable preview. So I think you'd have to specify that as a Maven plugin compiler configuration. Yeah, so let's see. So here in my POM file, I'm using Java 21. I am not using preview. However, in Ensembler, in its Maven, no, in its POM file, thought I had preview. Maybe I'm not using preview features here either. Oh, I know where I'm using it. Here? Yes, here. And so let's open up POM. Yeah, so here, the Surefire plugin, which runs the tests, we've got enable preview, and then the compiler, we're specifying 21 and enable preview. So when we do a Maven build, it's going to pay attention to these configuration settings. So as long as these are set correctly, then when you deploy it, you're fine, I think. Oh, you might have to enable preview when you run it. Do you have to do that? Or is that embedded? No, I'm not sure. I have to try that. So, so we definitely need, so I gotta look at that. So he mentions it's probably fine as long as it doesn't have business logic. Yeah, except what's business logic? So I've been burned by things that don't appear to be business logic, but are things you can make mistakes about, like specifying the wrong name for something, right? It's basically a string that was misspelled and it doesn't match something else. You might not be writing the logic, but some way or something is evaluating that logic. And if it doesn't match with something else, so it's a little bit of a tricky question. Is this logic? So, but still, that doesn't mean you shouldn't figure that out. Yeah, I agree. End of Hunter Zero. It makes me sad, because I feel like there's so much effort being written that is actually making things actively worse. It's a train. It's heading off a cliff, and maybe it's already fallen off the cliff, and there's just nothing you can do to stop it except just say, "Can we not be that? Can we not do that? Can we try something else?" But yeah, developers are going to be doing and attracted to complexity. I always say, look for the complexity in the domain, not on the technical side. Keep things boring, simple on the implementation side. Focus on the complexity in your business and domain. I want to try this while I'm here. So let's go ahead and build this from the command line. So we're going to do a clean verify. I don't have to quite, I could do package, but I may as well do verify. Uh, yeah. I guess I could have done skip tests, because I know there are test failures. Because we're in the middle of developing something. This is from my ensemble. So let's do a skip test. Folks, don't do this at home. Don't skip tests because it failed. I'm doing this on purpose. I know what I'm doing. I'm a professional. Okay. So if we do a Java jar uh, with the blackjack, no manifests. No manifest. Really? Why is there no manifest? Hmm. Hmm. Oh, because I'm not building a. Wait, what? Let's try that again. Because now I'm confused. It might be that this project's not in a buildable state. Uh, okay. That looks odd because that's the default jar. Hmm. I actually haven't built this and run it from the command line. So, uh, I'm not going to play around with this project because I'm not sure what state it's in. So let me go back to my format hero project, which is my simple project. And let's just go here. And let me use a preview feature somewhere. Uh, let's do, And let's go ahead and create this as a record. A record, and it basically takes string. What's it got a problem with? Oh, it's unreachable. Oops. I'll delete the right thing. There it is. And let's switch on that. Oh. And we'll ignore that. So we put a semicolon there. So what's complaining about here is that. So let's change that level. That's fine. We're doing nonsense anyway. So now we need to go into our POM file. Oh, look. Thank you, IntelliJ. So when I told IntelliJ to do that, I remember it used to just go and update its internal settings for the project, but now it went in and said, you're going to need to turn on the enable preview when you compile. So it probably did that there. I don't think it needed it here. So if we run the application, it should just work. Yeah, that's fine. But what I really care about is I want to do a clean package. Yeah, so that's what was missing before. Why didn't it do that? Did I not have the Spring Boot Maven plugin? So what was missing before is it built the jar, but then because it's a Spring app, the Spring Boot Maven plugin comes along and repackages it. So now, if I do, and that's not our target, this is our target. Expected, we need to run with enable preview. So let's go do that. Do I do that first? Let's try it here without the quote. I think that's correct. Yes. Okay. So yeah, so enable preview is what we want. Okay. I was hoping there was a shorthand version of it, but it's all longhand version. That's fine. Okay, so now we know how to do that. Now I'm really curious why the blackjack game wasn't working. Oh, because I don't have the Spring Boot plugin. This is what happens when you never actually deploy an application. So this code we've been working on for a few years, but it's mainly for learning stuff. We don't actually deploy the app. And so therefore it's never actually been deployable. That's kind of funny. So let's go fix that. Because we should at least make it deployable. So let's go and stick that as a plugin up here. Wait for IntelliJ to pick it up. And so now, oops, we do that. Now I expect to see a repackage happen. Yes, there's the repackage. All right, awesome. Yeah, right. If you don't want bug, I mean, this defined system administrators for decades. We like the way the system is operating. It's working. Can you please not deploy anything new? Because then we have to go and do work. All right. So now I expect if I run the jar, I expect this to fail because we're using preview features. What's interesting is we won't run into the preview. So that's interesting. It's not like it's checking. There's not some so when you compile with a newer version of the Java compiler, when there's a sufficient change, they change what's called the class file version, which means if you have something that's newer than the JVM you're trying to run it on, so if you try to compile on JDK 21 and you try to run it on like JDK 11, that ain't going to work. It's going to say you can't. But here, it's still the same version of the class file, and I haven't hit the code that executes. I haven't hit the code that's using the preview features, so therefore it's running fine without the enable preview. So this wouldn't have helped me discover that anyway. But hey, now it's buildable and deployable. I'm going to grab this plugin because I think if I do package without skipping the tests, right. So the tests are now failing because the tests are running the test requires enable preview. So I think we can fix that with that. I don't even need to package it. I can just test it. All right. So that looks good. Good. All right. So enable preview. So setting up Tom both for the Maven compiler and for the Maven, not Maven, Maven Surefire plugin. And then running Java requires enable. Whoops. Dang it. These are two dashes, but they're not showing up that way. Can I format them? Can I change the font? I know, this is getting a little... I don't know why I'm bothering doing this. Oh, look. Fonts popped up on my other monitor. Fixed width. There we go. Do we like the slab with the serifs or without? With, without, with. I kind of like the with. All right. Yeah, that's actually all I have to say. All right. So that is for the enable preview. So our GitHub action is this YAML file. And this is kind of the minimal one you want. And this goes into the GitHub workflows directory. So let's move this here. So workflow or workflows? Flows. Um, and then go into GitHub Actions. So what this looks like in GitHub Actions is here, Actions. These are the workflow runs. This is the specific workflow, but that's the only workflow I've got. And it tells you what the file is here. And so if you click on it, it will actually take you right to the file. When it just shows it to you, it shows you to the typical way. But if you edit it, it actually goes into a slightly different editor where it's got some stuff. So if you can add on some other actions. So what I think is a little bit confusing is this file is a workflow file. It's under actions, but it's a workflow. Each individual thing, so one of these steps is an action. So this is an action, this is an action, and then this is an action. So the workflow consists of multiple actions. So you got checkout, you got setup, Java, and you got build. And so actions they got. Good look at code quality. Interesting. Could do like an auto format. So there are a bunch of things I don't know if the Sonar probably has theirs, right? Yeah. So you got the Sonar cube scan, some other stuff there. You could put that in. But we're talking about sort of a minimal thing. So when you commit, so when to run the action defined by the on section on, push, move one pushed. So if we don't specify anything else, but you can also specify branches. So one of the things you can do is control what do I want here? Your branch. I actually forgot what this is, so we could go look at help. And for better or for worse, in my opinion, way worse, the syntax is YAML. But this is the main documentation, so let's go ahead and add that in. And name, run name. Care about that. This is right. So we can do on push. No, I guess I could put that on a single row. Let's format it that way. That looks better. So it's basically on push. Turns out in YAML, if you do it on the next line indented, then it's basically a parameter to the first one. I don't like that, but whatever. So you can use on, push, or fork. The filters is what I was interested in. Can specify a way to run on push to specific branch. Let's see. Filters. Right. So on push branches, you can specify main and then basically anything under releases. Not sure why you'd want to do it when you're creating a label, but whatever. You can also do it. Pull request. And so what you can do is you can set up separate actions to run, really separate. You can have set up separate, entirely separate workflows that run on different situations. So you can run, for example, lint analysis and SonarQube on a pull request. But then when you push to master, you're going to assume that all that's done, and then you can just run the tests. So that's sort of just what's possible. But my example is much simpler than that. Again, because we're talking about a tool that only has one or very few people working on it. Or if you're working on it, you're hopefully working on Ensemble. So that's when to run. And then the build and test command. Actually, the wrong header. This is finding. So we check out, we set up Java, and we build. And what that looks like is that. So those are the steps. So for example, this is an action. This is an action. And this is just a custom step. All right. So that's that file. And the idea is this. This is something that you want to execute that could fail. So what verify does is it basically does compile, test, package. It does tests and then verify. It doesn't do a package because we don't need the artifact. Verify just is an additional step on to after test that runs any basically tests that are outside the standard source main tests. Sometimes integration tests, some folks put them in a separate directory, and so that's what those would be. So like if you're running like Selenium tests or something like that. So verify just makes sure they're all run. And so the checkout basically just checks out your code. This sets up Java with this version and this distribution. And we're using Maven, so we want Maven to cache. And this is very nice because it'll figure out by default all the caching stuff. So if you're constantly rebuilding your project, it won't take as long as the first time, because the first time, unless dependencies change, so it's basically caching your dependencies. You can see that here in our run. Let's see. Oh, let's go back. Actually, let's cancel changes. Actions. Yeah, so you can see here, it ran in 2 minutes and 48 seconds. Most of that time was downloading the dependencies that this project uses. From there on, it's cached, and so it only takes 25 to 30 seconds to actually load the cache, check out the project, load the cache, and run the build. So if we look at this one, we look at the specific log output, we can see this part. We're basically downloading. I should turn off the downloading. I don't know that we need to see that. Oops, I can't spell parameter. What does B mean again? Batch mode. Yeah, so you want to be in batch mode, but I think we also want to turn off I would think we want to turn off transfer progress. It just fills up the logs. Let's do that as well. And I'm going to change the -b to -batch mode because I like the longer arguments. So let's do that. And then we want no transfer progress. Let's go ahead and push that. And we're only going to push that. I want to push this. No, I don't want to push that. So let's go ahead and say, let's go ahead, commit and push, and then we will see not here, not here, not here. We will see here in actions. We will see this in progress. Since the Maven stuff is cached, we won't see the transfer progress anyway. That's fine. It'll just be for next time. So this should all just be fine. And so you'll notice here, where is it? No, not here. Here? Yeah. So this is the cache key. But since this was the hit originally up front when it did the build and test, actually, I might have done it before that. Yeah. So here's the cache restored. So basically, here's the cache. It grabbed the cache. Cache was restored. This was the key used for that. And the cache was about 51 megs. Yeah. GitHub light mode versus dark mode. It's funny that these logs are in dark mode. I kind of find that actually a little hilarious. Although that's like terminal is one of the only things that I stick to dark mode. Just somehow terminals are dark mode. Terminals were always dark mode for me because I use terminals and that's all they were. Let's see. So I think that's that. And so basically we see the caching here. And so since it cached it, it's obviously much faster. Then it ran the tests, and that'll built and then ran the test. That was successful. Or I guess ran the test and then built the jar. And that was successful. And so then it was all available. And so then what happens as a result, and this is where we're going to now get on to, now that we're done with the building part. So this is not necessary. I mean, you could not have this. And so that means if you just, are like me and you just push to main or push to trunk or master, whatever you want to call it, then whatever system you have that's hooked up with your GitHub, whether it's Railway, Koyeb, or something else, will pick that up and then deploy it. But it's good to have this. This takes almost no time, right? 25, maybe longer, depending on how long your tests run, but hopefully they don't run too long. So maybe a couple of minutes. But that way you're making sure that what got pushed is actually at least passing your tests. In my experience, it's not, it's even if it happens 1 time out of 50 where I pushed something that I shouldn't have, it's good to have that backstop. For me though, the errors usually happen in configuration. Like I've left off an environment variable at the PaaS level. And so it's almost never that I have a failing test that I've pushed. Or something broken and a test would have caught it, or even just something broken. Usually I've messed up configuration. All right. And so then on Railway, if we look at it, we see, and if we caught it earlier, we would have seen it building because it passed. So we've got settings where it is check suites. And so this is where it looks at the GitHub actions, make sure that they completed successfully, and only then will it go ahead and do the deployment. And so this deployment, we can look at it here. We can look at the build logs. And so this is building using and boy, am I glad I turned off the transfer progress, because that makes this log so much shorter. So here, one of the advantages of using a PaaS is that you don't have to set up very much. I used to deploy onto Railway and rely on what are called build packs, which is basically you give it the Maven command to run, it runs the Maven command, builds the jar. Right. So basically, so there's actually this is actually pre-built. So I'm going to call this what? I don't want to call it continuous integration, because that's a process, not a tool. I'm just going to call it let's call it that. And so this belongs actually to that. And so there are basically three different ways to build. There's the uberfat jar, which is what you get when you do a Maven package. There's a Docker file where it will create a Docker image. So the output of this the output of this is a Docker image that you can run. The output of this is a native image that can only run on whatever platform you compiled it on. In a sense, the native image, I guess, is sort of a subset of Dockerfile. You can just directly build a native image, but from a deployment standpoint, that doesn't help you. So why did I flag that before? Learn spelling. So that might be useful if you are deploying to somewhere and you have a place to store your image. But really, you could just use the Docker file. And so sort of both of these let the PaaS build for you. So I'm going to take both of these, oops, and put those here. Hey there, C. Maribrat. What's my opinions for hyperscale? I am not sure I know what hyperscale is. Sounds familiar. You'll have to remind me what that is. I think I might have an opinion, but I want to make sure I'm talking about the right thing. So we could build a native image. This is useful maybe for testing locally. But again, we're talking about, I want to deploy onto Railway or Koyeb, so I don't need this. So both of these are passes. They're Railway is a little bit, I would say, further along the maturity cycle. So it has production ready database support. Um, it's a little more expensive. Keep it in a Roku still. Um, could you, let's see. Yeah, I guess I haven't, oh, okay. So it's the JetBrains Academy stuff. It probably good. But that's just a total guess. I don't, I don't have, I guess I don't have any opinions on hyperskill because I haven't looked at it deeply. It's probably something I should look at because I'm such a fan of IntelliJ. So, Koyeb is a bit less mature. Just, I don't know what the status of, um, let me pull up here. I wonder how long Koyeb is going to have a free tier because Railway went through that. I see every one of these companies go through this free tier business. I think Koyeb does require a credit card, but it's always dangerous as any kind of provider of computation services, of which these are, for free because you will get people abusing it. So they have a free tier. I have to check what the requirements are. But you basically get some minimal resources for virtual CPU, RAM, and disk based. So this is $5 a month, and you pay for any usage above $5. So which one you pick really depends on what you need in addition to your application. So it's likely that you'll need a database. You don't have to use one supplied by the PaaS, though. Like you could have your database deployed somewhere else. There are services that are just database only platforms, and that aren't from the big cloud providers. You could use that in combination with your app. You could, not even bother to deploy it on a PaaS, right? You could deploy it onto a Raspberry Pi, or you could deploy it onto your local machine, using something like, anywhere from ngrok to any other tools that provide access to your machine. But that's out of scope for what we're talking about anyway. So let's see. What else? And then I think it's just a matter of the specifics. So on Railway, you basically create a new project. So you create a new project and you choose GitHub, right, to deploy from GitHub repo. So we'll do that. If you're not already hooked up, it will require you to go through the authorization process. Right, so this gives permission for Railway, and you'll do something similar with Koyeb to basically have access to your repository so it can actually grab the code. Let's go pick a project. One thing I think I want to show deploying a non-database app. So deploy process. So this will be for no external database. Let's grab this and move that here. And move that here. And then we'll do that one. Hey, Buyer64. What's the Terraform thing? That's interesting. Okay. Not sure what I'd use that for. You'll have to tell me more. I guess you could deploy something elsewhere that connects to Railway resources? Interesting. Or is it manage? I'm not sure what that's doing. I'm not a Terraform person, so you'll have to tell me more. There's a reason I use a PaaS. I don't want to deal with like real cloud providers, and by real I mean complicated. Right. So again, the context of these videos, this will probably be two videos. Is you've got a project where it does not need the customization, configuration, and scalability and resources of something you typically deploy to a traditional cloud provider. So the minute I see Terraform, I'm like, what's that for? So let's see. So Postgres, let's see. Uh, um, trying to think of one of my apps that does database access. Oh, I see. It's create a new railway project. Um, except I get. Maybe that's useful. I mean, honestly, this takes no effort and you do it once. So, unlike sort of redeploying things where you might change stuff, I feels like now I got to learn Terraform in order to do that. That doesn't feel like a win to me. Like Railway already has templates. So you could basically, if you do something common, like I'm always deploying this plus this in this way, you can just deploy a template and it does it for you. So I am not convinced that this Terraform Railway provider really does anything for me, unless you are allergic to web UIs. I will admit the Railway UI sort of in general feels a little bit under engineered, under thought out. Like there's some just like awkwardness. But yeah, so do we want to deploy it now? Can add some variables. I'm not sure I even want to deploy it. So let's back up. Let's see, my quiz down, I don't think uses any database either. So I will have to create some kind of project with database. Yeah, I guess I could convert this project into storing stuff in a database, and maybe I do that. Um, I mean, I've already got the in-memory repository, so I could convert. I could take the final step and store that. All right, I'll think about that. But for a non database project, this will work fine. You'll basically get. So let's go ahead and let's try this again. So what are we going to deploy? I deploy that again. Deploy it. Okay, good. So it gave it another name, Fluffy Crook, which is great. And so pretty much once you hit deploy now, so assuming everything works, right? No build failures. then it will basically just deploy. So everything deployed fine. Now it's deployed. So once it's built, now it's deployed and now it's available. Um, and so you can hook up your own domain. So now it's up and running, and we can basically see it by looking at the details. No, the details just tells you about the deployment. We actually want to see. So I remember this last time, and I thought this was a little bit confusing. Is right now it's not available. It's available internally, but we actually want to make it publicly available. And look, they misspelled publicly. To file an issue. So and I totally get that typo. We want to make it available publicly, either we can generate a railway subdomain, we can hook up our own. Those are the two we care about. So we'll go ahead and have a generated domain, and now it's available. And so we can click this. Not found. There must have been a slight delay. So now it's up and running. There we go. All right, and it's deployed. Hey there, Matisse Tech. So that's it for Railway. Let's go turn off. Let's go delete this service. Otherwise, we're going to be paying for it. There's a couple of things. One is we can look at settings, and we can set the service to, where is it? We can do app sleeping. That's still currently in beta. We can turn that on, and that will basically turn it down to 0. The service will still be there, but if you hit it with some input, it'll wake it up. So the one thing I've found is that if the app accesses a database, it seems like it's just always doing I/O. I have not been able to troubleshoot that yet to figure out what's going on. Is it the connection pool? It feels like it's happening too frequently for the connection pool to be doing something. So there's something going on where there actually is I/O coming out of the application to the database, but it's not actually doing work because I'm not hitting the application. So so what we want to do is basically just delete the service. And now what it should do, and this is the UI that I'm like, it should just take you back to the dashboard. Because it's here, it's this empty project. Like there's no services inside this project. And really it should just delete the project. So there's this relationship of project to services that might be a little confusing. Let's push this up here. You can have the project without the service and you won't be charged anything because you only charge for running services, but you may as well delete the project. Otherwise, you're going to have a whole bunch of them on this page. I should probably delete this one too. I don't think this one has anything in it. Oh, there are no deploys for it. Because I removed that a while back. Let me go ahead and delete the project. Okay, so now it's gone. Kernel truth. God, yeah, no, I don't think that's what's going on inside. That would be terrible. No, it's something that I need to run locally with like Wireshark or something and figure out like what's it doing. Because if it can't sleep an app that has a database, that really sucks. So what I'd like is like my Ensembler app does not need to run 24/7. I'm paying for it to run 24/7. I can have it be less expensive by using less memory, which I want to do with a native image, because it doesn't even need 512 megs. It could get away with half that. But it'd be nice if it could just sleep, because then I won't pay for it at all instead of just paying less. All right. So I think that's it for the Railway deploy. So let's go ahead and look at Koyeb. Let me run Koyeb, because one of the things I'm concerned about is doxing myself and providing and showing my keys. Let me sign in. That was fine. Yes, and I remember now what was confusing about Koyeb is the relationship that it has with what it calls an organization and my GitHub. High quality chocolates? I'll take high quality chocolates. Gotta be high quality though. And so here I've got the same app, the Format Hero app. What's interesting is this apparently is not auto deploying, because it was deployed 7 days ago. And I just clearly Railway redeployed it recently. So let's take a look at this app. So it's got a single service. It's pulling off of this branch. This is where it's deployed. Koyeb is, I think, They have 2 free regions. They used to have just one that was Frankfurt, but I think now they have one that's in the US. What are its settings, though? I don't want to add a domain. Yeah, so the UIs are hard, but I feel like neither Railway nor Koyeb do a good job. So like what I'm looking for here is where's the settings for when I push something new to GitHub, you should grab it. Is that this? Because to me, this looks like I'd be clicking and going to the repository. But that's not what it does. It actually goes to the details of the app. I find that confusing. Binary64 asks, what DevOps practices do you buy into? I buy into DevOps as it was originally coined, which is what Netflix called you code it, you build it, you run it. I don't 100% buy into that in the sense that, well, I buy into it, but there's some prerequisites for that. I don't, if I were running a team, I don't want them running Kubernetes in the sense that that's not their responsibility. When they say run it, it means operate something, but you have to have a proper, mature operations platform. If you're a startup, sure. In which case you're running everything and you're doing everything and you're managing everything. But if you have a team of any size and a company of any size, you either outsource that to somebody like your cloud provider, like a PaaS, and there are larger ones than these two. But otherwise, you still want to have SREs. You still want to have folks who are, especially as you get, but the SREs should mostly be concerned with keeping the infrastructure. I guess I'm more saying developers should not be aware that you're using Kubernetes or not to deploy your applications. Now, it'll depend also on the types of applications you're running, but I find the widespread use and apparent required knowledge of Kubernetes to be offensive. I think it is, once again, developers are attracted to complexity, but it's for a lot of the apps they're deploying, they need a PaaS, and they already exist. And I see over and over and over again companies redeveloping an internal PaaS. Cut it out. You are not Netflix. And so this is the downside is most companies are not Netflix. They are not Uber. They do not have 10,000 microservices, nor should they. And so I see so much complexity pushed to developers. Developers should be tasked with operating things that are specific to the application. You can ship it and operate it without Kubernetes. Use Cloud Foundry. Use a platform where they run the Kubernetes. So Cloud Foundry is a PaaS, and it's a production level one that companies like Ford used to deploy their applications, and it's very much like this PaaS. So I think a lot of companies are trying to build their own PaaS. It's not an EKS. It happens to use Kubernetes, but is completely opaque from a user. You basically do a CF push. Just like you would do a Git push here, you do a CF push, and it deploys it. And so things that can go wrong, there are going to be two types of things that can go wrong. The stuff around networking and storage and things like that, that's your SRE team responsibility. Then there's a bug in the application. That's your application team's responsibility. And so there's still a clear dividing line. But the whole point of DevOps was in response to SREs saying, we don't want, right? And this goes back to the earlier comment. Stop changing the application because everything's working fine. And if you push more changes, you're going to break production. And it's like, our job is to ship features. So stop fighting me. And so there was this tension of SREs don't want things to change and developers only want things to change. So we shift a little bit of that responsibility, saying, okay, you can ship stuff, but you're responsible for what you're responsible for. Yeah, I think, yeah, I'm sorry, Dudeman. I understand your pain, and it's like, developers should not know that Kubernetes is there. They shouldn't know they shouldn't even know what a Helm template is. They shouldn't know any of that stuff. Not that they can't, but that's not their responsibility. Developers love complexity, and we see Kubernetes talked about at lots of conferences, so developers think that's important. By ship it, meaning they push a button to decide what gets pushed to production. That's shipping. I didn't say anything about running, like they don't run the hardware, just like most companies don't run the hardware. But unless they need to work with, like, again, in this, I'm talking about a mid-sized company that's got a bunch of teams that probably has 200 plus engineers. Most of those developers should not have to become expert in Kubernetes. So they push, it does continuous integration, or more precisely, it runs the build process, runs the test process, runs whatever quality checks you need, and then automatically deploys it. I don't have to know what Kubernetes is to do that. I was doing that before Kubernetes existed, and it was fine. And I see things actually going backwards with Kubernetes. Yes, by ship it, I mean you push the button to say this is ready to ship. Same way you'd produce a CD in the old days. And if that is just a push to master or merge with master or whatever it is you want to do, and you're running the application, right? There's a clear, and this is why DevOps is not a title. It's not a group of people. It is the process. It is developer working with ops. Ops does its job. Developers do their job, but they're working together to continually deploy applications. Again, to go against what was happening, and I still think it happens, of your sysadmin saying, stop shipping stuff. We don't want to have to, we like things that are stable. That's not the way businesses work, or at least not the way they should work. And so DevOps was a way to say, let's work together to find ways where we can build new features without constantly breaking production. The idea that you throw something over the wall, and it's up to this administrations to figure out how to install it and run it. It used to be like you'd give them like a jar file or a tar file, and they have to go install it on a machine, and then they'd write scripts to do that. And that's what we're trying to get away from. Yeah, pig over the wall. All right, so I was trying to figure out how do I guess that's settings. Choose your builder. That's interesting. Why should I have to choose my builder? Why can't it figure it out? So here, this is interesting. So here, and I'm not quite sure. I know Railway has support for Docker images. I just haven't set it up where it would pull the Docker image from somewhere else. Here I have it build a Docker image with a Docker file. I want that to happen here too. Why do I have to choose the builder? Using build pack, with Dockerfile. Let's open this up. Okay, those are just overriding the settings. So I guess if we select Dockerfile, we want a web service, we want echo. And now I can deploy in Washington, D.C., which is 100 millisecond closer in terms of latency. So let's do that. Let's check the advanced stuff. What have we got here? So we got environment variables, got exposing the service. I don't know why that's under advanced, though. Okay. It's always interesting when people put stuff under advanced, it's like, what do you actually mean by that? So I don't consider these advanced. Like, you need some environment variables, but whatever. They're just extra. So we don't need anything there. What I'm not seeing, though, is why it has... I wonder if it's because I changed... So let's go to deployments. Did it try to deploy before? No, it didn't. Look, I'm only using 122 megs. Because this app almost does nothing. Yeah, so I should probably explain build packs. Oops. Thought I had that somewhere. Oh, I think I had it and I took it out because I'm not going to explain how to use build packs because I no longer, but I should explain it at least. So, so build packs are basically, so ultimately all of these services are deploying Docker images, or let's call them OCI containers, OCI compatible containers, Docker image for short. So they're all images that you can run with Docker. And so the question is who defines how that image is built and structured? So build pack has everything you might need to deploy a language. So for example, for a Spring Boot app, at runtime, you need a JVM, putting native image aside. Typically, if you have a jar file, you're going to need a JVM. It's just like blood dangerous. And so build pack was sort of the easy way to do it because all you had to do was make sure that your jar file could be built, and it would take care of providing a container image that already had the operating system and the JVM. But building that stuff is now easy. Like the Docker file, especially now with and even multi-stage stuff is not new. With the multi-stage Docker file, this is all you need. And the problem with build pack, so what's nice is you don't have to create the rest of the image. And so this was a problem. Yeah, so I think when I first started doing passes, I mean, the Heroku came up with the idea of the build pack, or at least they certainly were the biggest user. And when Heroku started, Docker wasn't nearly as wide. Let's see, Docker was what, 2013? Heroku, I think, was older than that. So there was no container images, or at least they weren't as popular. And so build packs were a way to have a package deployable thing. And there wasn't anything else. And so they created build packs. Now that Docker is popular and it's easy to create a Docker image with the multi-stage builds, I think they're obsolete. I can't, I've been trying to think of a reason ever since, like, somebody said, well, why don't you just use a Docker file instead of, so the problem was, I want to use JK21 when it's released and not 3 months later. And in fact, I'm not sure if Railway still has yet to deploy a build pack that supports Java 21. And it is now 4 months after it's been released. Which is fine. Java is certainly not their biggest target market. But now if you have a Docker file, who the heck cares? Just build a Docker file. Hey, Kuros. I think Koyeb uses Firecracker micro VMs. So they support running Docker on the micro VM. Yeah. And so these days, Docker, I don't know what Railway uses, but it's pretty much these days, Docker images are the thing. And so what you want to ultimately have built is a Docker image. And then the question is, who builds it, them or you? It's more like who assembles it, because, and so the Docker file, is easy enough. Are people moving Docker to Podman? I'm not actually running Docker. I'm actually running OrbStack. So as long as you can, read, write, and execute, quote, Docker containers, which are basically OCI, right? There's a standard for them. You could do it, you don't have to use Docker software. View Kubernetes and Docker files is the same. Yeah, I built a Kubernetes, and it's doing way more than what Docker file does. Maybe you could compare it to Docker Compose, which was sort of a path along the idea of I have multiple things I want to run and I want to coordinate how they run. But yeah. I don't know much about Podman. I haven't used it. I basically switched to OrbStack because it seems to run better on my Mac than Docker does. But it does everything I need it to do. Tukes, do I know the game Done with Java Minecraft? Yes, I have built Minecraft plugins and stuff back in the day when my son was more into Minecraft. Your follow-on question, no, it is not. Doing Minecraft development is a painful, tedious exercise that will make you hate Java. So don't do that. Now, I will say my experience is at least 6 years old, so maybe it's gotten better, but it was pretty awful because it's a really old code base, and now you're building stuff with APIs and stuff on a really old code base. And so maybe that's been cleaned up and improved. But boy, I've been doing Java for 27, 28 years, and I struggled a lot because it was just terrible. It was just terrible. Hey, Luis again, dude. Nice to see you. You don't like Podman? Yeah, I mean, it again, maybe it's gotten better, but I like got just enough done that my son was happy. But yeah, it was not fun. All right, so whoops. So I'm trying to figure out why it's not auto deploying. Is it not auto deploying because it tried and failed? Because I don't see any errors. Let's redeploy and find out. see. No, I told it to be a Docker file. Oh, did I not apply the changes? Oh, shoot. Let's see if this works. I have a feeling this might work because it's going to ignore the Docker file. It's going to use the POM file. It's going to build it with Maven. So it detects that you have a POM file. That's what the build pack, the code around their build pack stuff does. So it detects that you've got a POM file, runs Maven to build it. Let's see. It detects your POM XML or your Gradle build file and does keep the right command to create a jar. So I've got a POM file, so let's see what happens. Log should be here at some point. Yeah, orb stack should be wider known. So I'm glad I got one more person to look at it. Uh-oh. I see red, but I'm not seeing the logs. Come on, logs. Waiting for logs, you and me both. Clear there's some problem. No, the GitHub action already succeeded. Yeah, I mean, Frankfurt's far for electricity and packets, but not that far. I remember the last time I did this, the logs took a little bit of time, but not this much. Yes, thank you. There's an error. But you're not going to tell me what it is, are you? The latest deployment ended in error. Okay. But what was the error? There was an error. We're just not going to tell you what it is. So it's nice that at least, like, it left the old version up and running, which is generally how they work. They keep the old one running while they're building the new one, then they deploy it, and then they basically swap to the new one and throw away the old one. Well, I may never see the log, so let's go back to the service. So this is just a console on the instance that's working. I don't want the instance that's working. So let's go back to settings. Let's change it to Docker file. Apply that change. Oh, and now it's going to redeploy. Let's look at the deployment now. Oh, I forgot to change the region. Darn it. I don't know why I'm not getting the logs. I may never get the logs, but hey, it succeeded. So these logs are coming. I don't know what's wrong with the build logs. All right. It's taking a while to deploy. Like, it should be deployed by now. So I had to force it to do I had to manually refresh the page. That's a bit sketch. So now the instance is healthy. Still can't see the build logs. That's a little annoying. Can I download them? Let's try and download them. Oh, look, they're empty. That's not useful. Have I ever tried Daku? I've looked at it. I've played with it, but again, it's like I don't want to operate that at that level. So Daku or Doku, I don't know how you're going to pronounce it, is basically run your own Heroku. But then you're running it on, maybe running it like on a DigitalOcean, but I'd rather just, I could run my Docker container on there, or I could just run it on a PaaS. I could see it if you're interested again, sort of in a bit of a lower level. But that's sort of but if I'm a team, I might want to be running that, right? Again, like I don't want the raw stuff that you still have to do with like Kubernetes. I don't want to deal with that. It's not my job. I would like to know why I'm not getting my build logs though. But at least the runtime is up and running. It's healthy. So that is straightforward. Let me change the settings. I wanted to change it to Washington. Unfortunately, I can't use San Francisco's expensive, I guess. I should know. I live here. So let's change it to Washington. Is that going to cause a redeploy? It's going to cause a redeploy. What's unfortunate, and this is the downside of using a Docker file, is if you redeploy it, it has to rebuild the image and then deploy it, as opposed to if you already had the image, it could just immediately basically just start the container. So that's sort of the slight downside. I don't think it's much of a downside, because your other option is you got to store the Docker image somewhere, and you got to pay for that. And you got to pay for the network to access it. Your sound, the sound is not video, not in sync. Locally, it looks good. Maybe Twitch is having a problem. And it could just be you. Well, you won't have to suffer it much more, because I got about 5 minutes before I got to go. So let's see if this redeploys. So let's see, what else do I want to say about Koyeb? I'll probably want to set up a new account so I can go through the process. So my mental model of Koyeb and how it works is not quite set yet. So I need to sort of build that. So I think that's going to be the third video, because I don't want to hold up the other videos for that. So I think so my goal for this stream was basically get sort of my plan for doing these as videos that I'll upload onto YouTube. So they'll be focusing on the GitHub action, showing what that's all about. setting that up, creating that. Then there's the builds. I didn't cover the native image yet. I think that's going to be a separate video too. So mainly I'll be talking about let the PaaS build it for you versus the build pack I'll talk about, but I think the native image will be a separate video. And then deploy that to Railway. And then Koyeb, I think, will be a separate video. Hey, it's healthy. Can I see build logs? Maybe? Not? No? Even in DC I can't? I will have to file an issue as to why I can't see the build logs, because I think that's kind of important. Ooh, no logs displayed. Let's see. Are they having the same problem I have? No, they're deploying a Docker image. That's not what I'm doing. One thing I will say is generally the support from Koyeb has been responsive. Railway support has also been relatively responsive, except for supporting Java 21 and build packs, which they still don't support and have not. And basically said use a Docker file. Which, again, I can understand, but it doesn't make me happy. All right, I will have to file an issue for that. Because I really should see the logs. I can see the runtime logs, which is great. Although I have to say the runtime logs are not... I'm not sure why I'm not seeing the Spring logs. Because I should be able to see... So if I go to the app, so there's the app. But it's not showing me the runtime logs either. These are not the logs. These are just the events. I wonder if it's having a problem with logs. Yes, Took. So Koyeb has a free tier. They have what are called Echo, Echo instances, which are very tiny instances. So let's see, what are the settings for the Echo? It's basically 0.1 of a virtual CPU, so not a lot of CPU, 512 megs of RAM, and 2 gigabytes of disk. And that's free. You can have one of those, and it can only run in one of two places. It can either run in Washington, D.C. or in Frankfurt. Then there are the really cheap ones that you can run as many as you want and you start paying for. Like the eNano is basically 0.22 cents per hour. So if we say 0.0022 24 hours a day, let's say 30 days a month, it's basically $1.50, $1.60 a month. The eMicro, the eSmall, so you basically you can pay for more, but you basically, so you get the Echo one for free, but you can only have one. So it's great for sort of experimenting with, but if you want to really run something, you're probably going to want to go up to the standard level, which is where now you're starting to pay for, right? That's where the nano starts. And then you can get more CPU if you need it. So if you need a little bit more CPU or a little bit more RAM, you're probably talking at like the micro or the small level. But even so, like even the micro level, or even let's say the small level, 0.0144. So that's $10 a month. I mean, if you've got an app, if it's a hobby, probably you're not going to want to do that. But if it's maybe a tiny business or a tool you use in your business or a tool that your team uses or something like that, that you need deployed and you don't have internal resources to deploy it onto, $10 a month is nothing. So my estimated monthly cost is $268. Oh, because I didn't select it. Yeah, so if I select small, then yeah. Look, it calculates it for me. But Echo is nice because it's free, or you can, you don't. So I'm not quite sure exactly what the difference is. Because you can have an E medium. I guess it's the same price. I guess the Echo ones are the ones that start with an E. Right? Yeah. So I'm not quite sure. So there must be some other differences between Echo and standard. I'm not sure what it is, other than maybe you can't run the echoes in certain regions. So that's the other thing is, okay, so the echoes, for economy, can only run in a couple of different locations. Standard can run anywhere. That's the difference. Okay, that makes sense. So what's the average RAM usage of a Spring Boot app? That's like saying, what's the average RAM usage of any app? There is none. It depends on the app. But you can get quite a lot done with a half a gig of memory with a Spring Boot app. And you can absolutely use, that's what the native image is, use the Graal VM. Graal VM is sort of a misnomer because it's not really a VM. It basically is a compiler. But anyway, you can compile to a native image to use less RAM. Yeah. So you can like I mean, not like my ensembler tool is all that big, but you can run a fair amount in half a gig. So the free level, you don't get a lot of CPU, so it's not going to run very fast. But you'll have enough RAM. And yeah. All right. I think that's all I've got for today. I think I've planned out my first couple of videos. So I'll probably be recording those this weekend. Can you make your app use constant memory though? Well, you can, if you're not compiling to a native image, if you're running the JVM, you can just tell it you only have this much memory and it'll only use that much memory. It may run out of memory, and might garbage collect more often, but that may not be an issue. But again, there's so many variables with how much memory your application will use that it's impossible to say without knowing about the application. Alrighty. That's all, folks. Thanks for hanging out. Let's see, my next scheduled stream at some point this weekend, I'll be doing some streams. I'm not sure if it'll just be me or if Mike and I will work on the Song Themes app. As always, if you're not part of the Discord, you won't find out until the last minute when we're going to stream next. So join the Discord. And not just join the Discord, but also you will want to make sure that you basically click on the right links. So, whoops. So there's a roles channel, and what you want to do is click on the coding stream alerts box. And so then I don't ping everybody. I just ping those who are interested in coding stream alerts. And you'll get notified. And usually I try to announce, sometimes it's not until half an hour before, but I try to announce, especially when I'm pairing streaming, at least a day or two in advance. All right. Thanks, folks. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for the questions and discussion. And I will see you next time. Have a good one.